Hi everyone, Pacchia here, and you're watching the Markman Minute, where we look at the busy intersection between IP law and investing. I'm joined by Gaston, as always. He joins us over Skype from his office. Gaston, welcome back from Texas. Starting off there, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, Lee. Thank you.
So we're talking VirnetX and Apple today. Looks like the decision came down, and VirnetX lives to fight another day. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that's right, Lee. Actually, the jury verdict came back last Wednesday afternoon, late in the day, with the jury returning a full verdict for VirnetX across every patent asserted, every claim asserted, and also writing out a prospective big check of $625 million in past damages. So,
not a small amount of money. We'll take each party separately. What does this mean, first off, because I think it's a little bit of probably a shorter soundbite. What does it mean for Apple?
Well, for Apple, it means that they're just going to have to continue fighting. This is one of the largest patent verdicts in history. Obviously, there's a long way to go before Apple needs to write any checks to VirnetX absent settlement. So I think what we're going to see is the ongoing efforts by Apple to try to get the decision overturned. They already filed for a mistrial based on some arguments, closing arguments made by VirnetX's counsel. While that may or may not get any traction, you can expect that they're going to file a full slate of post-trial motions and eventually appeal the case to the federal circuit.
Now, VirnetX, what does it mean for VirnetX?
Well, for VirnetX, obviously, it's a validation of their approach, which was to try to get Apple in their day of court. But at the same time, the challenges remain. They still have to defeat. They got to hope the verdict stands based on the post-trial motions and, like I said, the federal circuit appeal. They're also dealing with, and this really goes to a lot of the same issues we've been talking about over the last year. VirnetX is also dealing with two IPRs that were filed against two of the patents that were asserted in the case by a New York-based hedge fund that's a known short seller of VirnetX's stock. While those IPR filings are yet to be determined, they have been instituted, meaning that there's an expectation that these patents, in particular, two of the patents that VirnetX asserted against Apple, may be erased by the patent office as soon as this coming October, or no later than this coming October. When you look at the IPR and you look at the fact that two of these patents were responsible for over $300 million in past damages alone, this IPR becomes something else that both VirnetX, Apple, and of course the hedge fund that filed it are going to be, litigating probably with renewed vigor.
So VirnetX lives to fight another day, but on those coming days that it just won, they have a lot facing them, don't they?
As I always say, if you want to guarantee yourself money in a patent case, you have to settle. So absent settlement, yes, VirnetX is going to continue its fight against Apple. They may choose to take the momentum and file additional cases against other parties. They may also refile against Apple and accuse more Apple products to try to up the risk. But ultimately, they may be a ways away from actually collecting any money absent settlement.
$625 million is a lot of money, even for a company the size of Apple. Is this going to open them up to other problems on the litigation landscape?
Well, it's interesting you ask that question, because one of the other themes that we've been talking about here on the Markman Minute and of course resonating throughout the industry has been the kind of depressive aura around these patent enforcement companies. And the question really remains, and it's not only limited to Apple, but it's really for the entire technology sector, is this headline verdict going to reinvigorate the space, get investors excited again about backing these megabucks case against large companies? And what potential does that have to reignite the debate around patent trolls and all the all the boogeymen that the larger companies have tried to dismiss and pursue patent reform legislation against. So it's definitely big news in the sector. I think it's going to give a little bit of encouragement to a lot of investors, not only in VirnetX but also to patent owners, that these things can be valuable. But there's a lot that remains to be seen for VirnetX and Apple in this situation. I mean, going back to your question about Apple's resources, they're effectively unlimited. And whenever Apple's litigating a case like this, they're not only concerned about the amount of money they have to pay a company like VirnetX, but also whether or not it's going to bring more patent challengers out of the shadows to try to get their piece of flesh.
Wild stuff. Gaston, turning away from VirnetX and Apple, what else do you have your eyes on this week?
Well, I think coming up there's a fair amount of activity that we're looking at in the pharmaceutical space with respect to Kyle Bass IPR decisions that should be hitting over the next 4 to 6 weeks. There's also been some interesting district court decisions in bench trial cases involving pharmaceutical products. So I would say that generally there's always a lot going on for investors in the patent and IP space, and we're going to continue to try to report on those events that we think are worthwhile.
Good stuff. Gaston, thanks for your time today.
All right, thank you, Lee.
That's Gaston Krug from Markman Advisors. If you'd like to see more of the stuff we're working on, be sure to go check us out online. You can find this at mimesislaw.com under the IP Flow tab. We're also on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. If you're listening to us over podcast, do us a favor and write us a good review on iTunes. It makes all the difference in the world. I'm Lee Pacchia. Thanks for watching. Why are you in Tyler, Texas?
In addition to being the rose capital of the world, Tyler, Texas is famous for being the patent litigation capital of the world. And there's a good chance on any given week that if there is a patent trial of interest to investors, it's happening down here in Tyler or in Marshall.